Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Dana Alexa, filling in for Kara McKinney. To ban TikTok or not to ban it? That is the question on Capitol Hill this week. It was just about a month ago when the House approved a bill to ban TikTok in the U.S. unless the platform cuts all ties with its current parent company, ByteDance, due to its alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. The bill is in the hands of the Senate, where lawmakers will either approve the measure or reject it. In the meantime, there's a fierce debate about the nature of the bill and the precedent it'll establish in giving the federal government the authority to shut down social media companies that might be tied to foreign nations for, of course, national security reasons. Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell supports the bill to ban TikTok, reportedly because he views it nothing more than a political tool of the Chinese government to meddle in American politics for their own gain. In fact, in an address on Monday urging his colleagues to support the ban, he said, quote, "America's greatest strategic rival is threatening our security right here on U.S. soil in tens of millions of Americans' homes. This is a matter that deserves Congress' urgent attention, and I'll support common sense bipartisan steps to take one of Beijing's favorite tools of coercion and espionage off the table." End quote. Now, some of these concerns pertaining to espionage and political interference are reasonable, but many critics say the solution isn't to outright ban the application without any regard to the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment more specifically. It's unclear if lawmakers can do this. And even if they're authorized to ban, many people say they shouldn't for several reasons. This includes concerns about violating people's freedom of speech, which is expressed on TikTok. This might be why Senate Majority Leader Schumer hasn't brought the bill up for a vote yet in the Senate, particularly due to the fierce opposition from Democrat-leaning voters and young people across the country. So once again, before we make any hasty policy decisions, we should think this through very carefully. On one hand, we could be taking a step to deter foreign nations from undermining our own national security. But on the other, we could be opening the door to extreme and unconstitutional overreach from the federal government. Joining us now with more is independent journalist Jackson Gosnell. He joins me right now. Jackson, welcome. I understand that you were just on the Hill a few days ago and just recently in advocacy of TikTok. Who did you meet with and what did you discuss?
Yeah, Dana, it's good to be with you. I am on the Hill today, and I met with the offices of Senators Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina to talk about why TikTok is important to me. I shared the news on TikTok, and I think a ban would be devastating. And so I expressed that to my senators as they consider this new legislation that could or could not be heard very shortly in the Senate. And so I provided some key points as to why I think it should stick around.
What are your key points? Share with us.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, it would be silencing millions of people who use the app. I also reach a lot of people who traditionally don't get their news from regular news outlets. And so I'm sharing information. I'm doing good with the platform. There's a lot of other people doing that as well. And while there are legitimate concerns about data and privacy, I think those same concerns exist with other social media platforms. And from what I have seen from TikTok, they are taking proactive steps to ensure that user data is safe. And that's why they've invested in something called Project Texas, where they're starting to store Americans' data and have been in Texas for a while now. They're also ensuring that no foreign adversaries have access to it. And so I think if we ban this social media platform, this is the first of what could be many steps to silence Americans.
Well, is it the Republicans that aren't getting it, or is it the young people not getting it? Because from my understanding, the contingency is on ByteDance severing its ties with TikTok. And so when the divestiture kicks in, then we can keep TikTok. So wouldn't people be more in support of the divestiture? Do they not understand that?
You know, I think a lot of people are in support of perhaps an American buyer coming forward. The timeline for that seems a little unreasonable right now. There's 6 months that they would have to do that if this passed. But also, you mentioned young people. This is a critical issue for young people. A lot of young people are on this app. They use it all the time, and so a ban would be detrimental. It's also important to note that this is an election year, and you're going to have young voters participating in this election. I think a ban would have political consequences for many people in this election year. So, look, I recognize that there are some concerns with TikTok, but I think that there's bigger fish to fry in this country. And why are we focusing on an app that does not silence people when many others do?
Well, that is a good point, but here's another one. Why? And you say that, the tradition, young people don't go with traditional news. They're not reading legacy media. They're certainly not reading the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. They go to TikTok, They go to Instagram, Snapchat even for news. But the question lingers here. Is that a good thing? You're making the argument that it is a good thing that people have access to news, but maybe just because it's available doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for them. Maybe this will force a conversation where they have to look for other news sources, like OAN perhaps, for news. Because from the looks of it, Jackson, there's a lot of disinformation on TikTok, as I've seen. And it's not just news, it's other things. And, for the most part, I'll give you this, it is kind of, dancing, food videos, what workouts am I doing at the gym? But there's a lot of influence that I think the Chinese party has that we don't exactly realize.
And to your point, I don't think that the app is perfect. I think there's certainly room for improvement, and I think that room for improvement will pan out as we go through the next few weeks with this moving through the Senate and so forth. Obviously, it has a lot of bipartisan support, but again, I don't understand the intense focus on TikTok. We have, Chinese buying our farmland in this country. We have other serious concerns, and this is an app that millions of people use. And sure, while there are concerns, again, to my point, I think we have bigger issues. And I think that a lot of the concerns that people have are being addressed by TikTok. We'll see if that ends up being the case when it comes down to it. I know there's going to be a lot of conversations on the Hill. I know there's going to be many things that have to be answered about this app, and I welcome that. I think accountability is imperative, but a total ban I don't think is the answer.
Yeah, okay. Well, I get your point, and you raise a fair one, and it's, yes, we should be focused on the Chinese not buying our land, buying our real estate, our properties near certain military installations. That should not be happening. But the problem with TikTok is that we're at a disinformation war. And so when they start to collect our data, who knows what they're doing with it? And I get it. Other companies doing it too. But I guess now the conversation is it better that maybe our government is doing and not China's? I don't know. Maybe that's a question. But when you did talk to senators, you talked to Tim Scott, right? And you talked to Lindsey Graham. Were you able to make any convincing points? Did they start to maybe become more neutral on the stance of banning TikTok?
Well, I met with their staff, and I just had a brief moment to interact with Senator Scott earlier today. And I think that Lindsey Graham's office, they have some concerns that they want to address before they're able to move forward with this. And Tim Scott's do as well. But I think Tim Scott is really more on the listening side. He wants to hear from people and hear what they have to say. So I welcome that. And by the way, the point that a lot of lawmakers are making, and people for that matter, is that you could just go to another platform. But the reach is just not the same on those other platforms as it is with TikTok. So, and just to finally put a point on this, I'm not saying it's perfect, but again, I think we have bigger issues right now.
All right, so do you think, and lastly, we got a minute here, with such bipartisan support that this has, it obviously overwhelmingly passed in the House, and then it's going to take here in the Senate. What is your prediction? Do you think this is going to go through, just from people you've maybe been speaking with and, other young people alike, because you're a Gen Zer, and so, I don't know. I want to see if they really have all the influence here.
Well, I hope it doesn't go away, and I think that the president signing that would be politically devastating. Already the president's under a ton of scrutiny, and if this passes the Senate and he signs it, young people are going to be so mad. Obviously, the Biden administration is using the platform right now. They've banned the app on government devices, but they have a campaign account, so it's really interesting. So we'll see what happens. I hope it doesn't go away, but we'll see.
Yeah, whatever it takes to pander to the young vote. That's why he has the TikTok account. All right, Jackson, thanks so much. So excited that you're in the nation's capital and, doing fun political things out there. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, good to see you, Dana. Thanks so much.
Okay, Jackson, bye. When we come back, we'll have the results of our last tipping point poll where we ask, will Biden bypass SCOTUS and Congress to push debt forgiveness? You won't want to miss it when we come back.